Having your submissive kneel at your feet isn't the only way to exploit an erotic power gap in your Dom-Sub relationship. That's why in this video, I'm showing you 10 slave positions that don't involve kneeling. Because once you see how even these non-kneeling positions can radically shift your DS dynamic for the better, you'll never want to play without these poses. I love position training for many of the reasons we discussed in the last video. So be sure to check it out for a deep dive into why slave positions are so important and what they can offer your dynamic. Because these slave positions have a profound way of getting into your submissive's mind and sparking deep arousal without you even having to touch them. What dominant doesn't want that? And that brings us to the first four positions, which are subtle head movements. And these may not seem like much, but they can be intensely powerful if used in the right context. For instance, our first position, head arrogant, is excellent to use with a brazen and bratty submissive, making them keep their head up and act haughty as you degrade and punish them for their behavior. And in this position, the submissive stands and tilts their head back as far as possible. Now, because these are non-kneeling positions, I'm saying standing, but the beauty about slave training positions is they can be added upon, they can be combined to increase the level of your commands. So you can always tell your submissive basic kneel with head arrogant if that suits the context of your play or scene. We also have head proud, which is similar, but the submissive stands and tilts their head up slightly, but not nearly as far as head arrogant. Position 3 is head neutral and pretty self-explanatory. Instead of the submissive tilting their head all the way up or slightly, they are to keep their chin parallel with the floor. Position 4 being head humble, where the submissive tilts their head down, and you can also modify this where their eyes are straight or their eyes are lowered, depending on your preference as the dominant. Position 5 is attention, where the submissive stands with their legs together and they clasp their hands behind their back. Now, a modification you can use for this is either flat feet or on their tiptoes. Obviously, if you make the submissive go on point, that is going to be much more strenuous and require much more focus. Position 6 is inspection, where the submissive stands with their legs apart and places their hands on the back of their head. Now, like we said in the last position, they can be on point, and that's actually preferred. Anytime your submissive is in one of these positions, on point where they're pointing their toes, that's the ideal because it really makes the feet look beautiful, more elongated, more slender. So that's the default, but you can always instruct the submissive to be flat on their feet instead if that suits you better. Position 7 is called offered, where the submissive's head is humble, their wrists are crossed, and their arms are extended overhead. And this is basically to signify the submissive extending their arms and offering them to be tied by the dominant. Now, position 8 is being demonstrated in a kneeling position, but it does not have to be. The Egyptian position is not the kneeling, it's the fact that the submissive's arms are crossed over their chest, leaving their breasts exposed. A variation of this is Egyptian modest or modest Egyptian, where the submissive takes exactly the same position, but instead of leaving their breasts exposed, they situate their arms to cover themselves. And this is great for public play, things like that, play parties, whatnot. And that brings us to position 10, which is tabletop or bend over. And in this case, the submissive rests their hands on whatever chosen furniture or prop you desire, and they flatten their back and their legs are spread to whatever degree you choose, dominant for a variety of uses. So between these last two videos, you now have almost 20 slave positions to start with. But if you want access to my visual guide of 24 additional positions, plus bonus training videos and tutorials, go to patreon.com/LXerotica to download these resources instantly and save 30% now through July 28th. If you're using any of these slave positions in your dynamic or want to try one of them, comment and let me know which ones were the most appealing to you. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, and share with a kinky friend, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.